My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This episode is brought to you by Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto, which can help you lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks. Get started at factormeals.com/factor50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Weight loss with Factor Keto based on a randomized controlled clinical trial. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise.
Coming up on this episode of the Entrepreneurial You.
I believe that there's 2 words that should never be put together. And those words are, I can't. I've come to learn that saying things like, why do things happen to me, is me blaming everybody else for what goes on. Now what I say is, everything happens through me. It doesn't happen for me. It happens through me. I am the conduit for the good and the bad that happens in my life.
Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's the Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
Welcome back. It is indeed the Entrepreneurial You podcast, of course, the show that inspires and motivates entrepreneurs as we host amazing guests like the one we're about to introduce, in addition to Seth Godin, Lisa Nichols, Les Brown, and so many others. Of course, I'm your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter, and joining us today is Martin Salama, the architect of the Warriors Life Code. And that's an acronym. Life is an acronym. For over a decade, Martin has been empowering entrepreneurs to shift from worry and lack to abundance and fulfillment. Why spend your time worrying when you can be living incredibly full every day? Why is the question. And we're going to hear from Martin. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Heneka. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so honored to be on a show who's had such unbelievable luminaries before me.
Amazing sauce. You're in great company. So our topic today, let me tell our audience, is unlocking abundance. Embrace the warrior's mindset for entrepreneurial success. And so we're going to explore what it means, to have a transformation within your mindset and how to embrace that abundance in our lives, because that is available to all of us, right? We're going to uncover the principles behind the Warriors Life Code and how they can help you to thrive as an entrepreneur. And thriving is what we're all about. It's 2020 Thrive, right? We're not surviving, we're thriving. Welcome to 2020 Thrive.
That's right. I love that. That's fantastic.
All right. So let me get a little icebreaker going, Martin, as if we need to break any more ice, right? Yeah. So if you could have any superpower for a day, what would it be? And how would you use it to help others?
Oh, wow. What an interesting question.
And I'm hoping it's not to let everybody eat their vegetables, right?
Well, I've always wanted to be somebody who can snap my fingers and be in one place, from another, to transport myself anywhere in the world, anytime, not necessarily time-wise, just if I snap my fingers, I'm in Jamaica, I'm in Kingston with you, or near Kingston with you, or back here in Brooklyn, just like that. And I think I want that because I love the human contact, the human touch, being able to be with people. So imagine I'm a coach, and instead of having to do Zoom these days, but I want to be with the client who happens to be in Europe, I snap my fingers and here I am face to face with them.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
You almost like have that omnipresence, yeah? That would be amazing. Okay, thanks for sharing a little give us a little insight into how you're thinking. So Martin, I've been talking to my audience about this life code, and I did mention that life is an acronym. So what's that?
So I got to give you a little bit of a backstory
for
a minute. It's just to understand where it came from. So in 2008, my wife and I were working on a project for 5 years to build a multi-million-dollar health club and tennis center in New Jersey. And it took us 5 years because we were going through all of the different things you have to go through, find the land, make sure it's feasible, do the engineering and the architecture and all that, and then go through the city and get the approval. So that took us a 5-year time. And it, put about $3.5 million into it. My money, family money, investors and all that. And every time we went to the bank, they're like, yeah, we can't wait till you get the approvals. We think this is a great project. I'm like, okay, fantastic. I'm so excited. So finally, in the summer of 2008, we got the approvals. So I go to the bank. I'm like, okay, we're ready. Let's go. They're like, yeah, we're not lending right now. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I got over $3.5 million into this. You guys have been waiting. You've been giving away money the last few years. Like, well, yeah, things are changing now. A month later, the financial world fell apart. Bernie Madoff happened, the subprime loans happened, and just like that, the world was turned upside down. And so was I. Just like that, I lost everything. I was wiped out. And I went into a depression for about a year. I stopped paying my mortgage. I stopped paying my car payments. A few months later, my son says, Dad, look outside. They were towing away my BMW. They repossessed it. I mean, that's how bad it was. My house went into foreclosure. But because we were in New Jersey at a time where everybody's houses were going into foreclosure, it took them many years before they finally came and took the house away. But I was in a bad place. And I had to get myself through that and change my mindset. And I decided that, this is a time that I can now turn around and recreate myself. And I decided, okay, what do I love doing in my life? And I loved being involved in community events. I was always a leader. And as a leader, people would come and say, well, Martin, I can't do what you're doing in the organization. I was like, but I don't need you to do what I'm doing. I need you to do what you're good at. And I would find out what they were good at. And what I realized was I was coaching them and finding out what was good for them. And then they would get involved with their potential was best. So it's like, oh, that sounds good. Let me look into coaching. I had done a little bit and coached on my own in the past. So I looked into it and I found a great school and I decided to go to coach training. And at about the same time, about 2 months before I was going to start, it was my 24th wedding anniversary. And my wife gave me a very interesting gift, Heneka. She said, I want a divorce. Yeah. Pretty crazy day to give it, and she's not the romantic type, would you think? I was devastated. Here I am picking myself up again. And just like that, I'm knocked down again. I felt like I said to myself, why does everything keep happening to me? But I also made the decision that I was going to still go through and become a life coach. And I think God was tapping me on the shoulder at that moment, Heneka, and said, you really want to go through life coach training? Well, why don't you make sure you really need to understand what needs to happen here? And through that and through my experiences over the last 15 years, basically, I've come to learn that saying things like, why do things happen to me, is me blaming everybody else for what goes on. Now what I say is everything happens through me. It doesn't happen for me. It happens through me. I'm the conduit for the good and the bad that happens in my life. So I took that and I started coaching around that. Originally, I was coaching around divorce recovery because I had just come through a divorce. And then a few years after do that, I was loving my life. I was loving everything that I was doing. And I was meditating, and I'm ADHD. So could you imagine an ADHD guy meditating? It was all over the place. But one of these days, I had this download of information that I was loving my life and I should show other people how they could love theirs too. And I wrote for about 2 hours after that 10-minute guided meditation. And out of it came the acronym LIFE. Live incredibly full every day.
Amazing. Like, OMG. I feel like those millennials and Gen Zs now, like OMG, and Guys, my peak performers, do you understand why I'm speechless? This episode is going to be, let me tell you what number episode this is. This is episode 398 of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. And I have had clearly a number of guests on this show, and they've all had their different stories. But everyone in its own way resonates differently. And this one kind of leaves me speechless, because in rapid succession, you're sharing with us all of that happened to you. And here you are sitting across from me on a Zoom call for this interview. And you have such a huge smile on your face. You're enjoying your life.
I'm loving life.
And this is a beautiful lesson that life happens, but it's not what happens to us, really, or through us, is really how we react in those circumstances.
Right.
And
or even better,
beautiful.
how we respond.
And how we respond, react and respond. Absolutely. Right. Thank you for sharing your incredible journey, Martin.
Thank you.
It has inspired me. I mean, I'm constantly seeking out inspiration. And that's why I have these conversations. And I know for sure that it has inspired my audience. So the L.I.F.E code. Let's talk about the L.I.F.E code, the warrior code. You talked about your inspirational journey. Now, what is that transformation like? Let's talk about the transformation between the point of you meeting your clients. And I know it's different for everyone, but a general response. You meeting your clients where they are and when they can get to the place, maybe not necessarily where you are, but even some likelihood that they will get out of their rut, for example. What's that transformation process like?
You know, it's different for each person.
Right.
And each person comes to me with different issues and where they are in their lives and what they're looking for, and their ability to say, okay, I understand that I have to change who I was in the past to become who I want to be. Right. And they have to recognize that they have to admit what worked in the past isn't working. And I start with what I call the 3-step process: admission, cleansing, and celebration. Admit that what has been working in the past isn't working anymore, right? The cleansing is doing the work to change what isn't working. And the celebration is recognizing when the work that you've put in is starting to happen. Even the little goals. Let's say somebody decides, I need to lose 50 pounds. And they go, well, you know, maybe I could lose that in a week. We all know you can't lose 50 pounds in a week. So you admit that you need to lose weight. Then we come up with a plan for you to do that. That's the cleansing. Then when you lose a few pounds, you celebrate. And you say, the things I'm doing is working. So celebrate the small victories along the way. That's a simple version of it. But we start with that, and then we build on that. And every time they have a step back or a setback, which everybody does, right? We go, okay, what of the things that you admitted are you now no longer admitting, and why? Why have you taken that step back? Why have you said, okay, what was working in the past wasn't working in the past, you know, is working now, all that stuff. You have to be willing to go back, redesign, refocus, and go back and say, okay, I'm admitting it again and I'm moving forward. It doesn't happen overnight, because you know what happens, Heneka, when it does happen overnight? It's not sustainable.
And sustainability is very important, you know, because a lot of times the adrenaline rush that we get and the novelty that comes when we begin to experience change. But if it is that we're not doing the things, putting in the plans in place and the strategies in place to make sure over time it's sustained, then we fall right back.
Exactly.
We fall right back, because we are creatures as humans. We are creatures of habits.
Exactly. So, and what happens is that you go, okay, everything's good. And then you, without recognizing it, subconsciously, you start doing the old things again. So I believe it takes a while. And I know people don't like to hear that. There's no such thing as the magic pill that just you wake up and it turns around and everything's hunky-dory, everything's wonderful. But you build on your successes. And that's why I think it's important to celebrate the small successes along the way, because that helps to perpetuate it and build upon it. So that when you get to the 50 pounds, you go, That was an unbelievable journey. I had my ups and downs in there. I lost 10 pounds. I put back 3 pounds. I went back, but it was all part of the journey. And you can reflect on it and say, what was great? What wasn't great? How could I make it better next time for whatever it is in my life?
And it's important to start, like, for example, I did a social media sabbatical in December of 2024 for 30 days. And I kid you not, like the habit that I've now built in around not being on social media, I really have no desire to be on social media. And I know I need to be there for business. And so I have strategically decided that I'm going to focus a bit more on one of them and maybe secondarily another. But I am not there every minute checking to see who commented on what, and because my focus has so been shifted, because I realized you can't keep doing the same things you've always done and expect different results. So tell us about, the importance of being willing to make that change, that, the fear of missing out, for example, is a real thing, right? But you may need that to shift your mindset. You may need that to help in the process. So talk to us about that, when you encounter with your clients, what do you tell them about that?
So I think it's very important for them to recognize what words they're using, because the words they're saying out loud are the thoughts that they have within themselves, right? And the way you self-talk begins the process. So, for example, I believe that there's 2 words that should never be put together. And those words are, I can't. Right? As soon as you say, I can't, you lose. But instead, I tell them, if you can turn around, instead of saying I can't and say I can, fantastic. But not everybody can do that. So how about instead of saying I can, and especially not saying I can't, how about saying, how can I? Right? I can't afford a new car. Okay, well, then you're not getting one. But how can I afford a new car? What can I do? What opportunities can I look for? What openings can I find that will bring me that? And I believe that the law of attraction comes to play a lot in here. Okay. And I've taken the law of attraction and I've moved it along a bit, because so many people think that the law of attraction means, let me think about what I want and everything will come to me. And when it doesn't work, they go, the law of attraction doesn't work. Well, that's true. It doesn't work because it needs more work than that. So I came up with what I call the cycle of A's. Okay. So the cycle of A's, the first one is ask. And it's in a cycle on purpose because it's in perpetual motion. So I created a few years ago, a year or so ago, when my book came out, a card deck of my principles in my book, in my course. So the first one is ask, because it goes in perpetual motion. Ask God for what you want. And it could be as simple as, I just came up with a great idea. I'm going to do a podcast, right? Perfect for you, right? People come to you and say, I want to do a podcast. Is that enough for them to just say, I want to do a podcast?
No, action has to be taken.
Action. So that's the second A, act, right? Just put down a plan, make a decision as to what has to happen, and start doing the work towards it. But Heneka, here's where the things become a little different than what you're going to think I'm going to say. The last A is attitude. You must have an attitude of, I don't care about the outcome. If I'm emotionally tied to the outcome, that's the mindset of lack. Oh, what happens if I don't get my podcast? You're throwing out the energy of lack. It will stay away from you. If you go, okay, I'm doing the work and it'll eventually happen and things will go. And when it does, be ready for the change and don't say that it's a coincidence. You're doing the work towards it. And if something doesn't go exactly right, you got to look to make a course correction. Because if you're emotionally tied that it has to go this way and it doesn't, you'll give up. Yeah. And you'll say the law of attraction doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. The cycle of A's: ask, act, and have an attitude. Similarly, almost, not exactly like this, but similarly in the Bible, that same acronym ask, seek, knock. Yeah, I like what you're sharing. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders that are listening. And sometimes, I posted something that successful people, to be super successful, what you have to do is to really ignore, just say a lot of no's. You have to say a lot of no's. And because there's a fear of missing out, I know somebody reacted to me this morning and she asked the question, so what if the thing that we're ignoring is the thing that we need to focus on to get to where we need to get to? But see, that is when we understand our purpose. But before I even preempt you, let's talk about that. You respond to that. How do you know? Because as a coach and as you are interacting with your clients, it's very important that you share with them they need to focus. And I know you do that, right?
Yeah.
Well, how does one really know what it is that they ought to focus on when there are so many bright, shiny, glistening objects pulling their attention toward them?
Listen,
Attention toward them.
I got to tell you, Heneka, I am a big victim of shiny object syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have to have this. Oh, I got to have that. So much so that over the last 12, 15 years, I've been in so many different coach to coaches programs to build my coaching program so that it has the impact and it makes the money. And I would get into these programs, pay all the money, and then realize, wait a minute, they didn't have everything I thought it was going to have. So I understand that. And I'll get back to that a little bit further in a little bit. Okay, about my program, because I want to focus on what you're saying right now. So what someone has to do is understand that it's okay to look at these other things, but understand where are you best serving yourself and serving your clients or your audience or whatever. And then if there are other things that are going on that you think needs your attention, but it's not in your wheelhouse, it's not what your expertise is, you're wasting your time doing things you shouldn't be doing. And there's a wonderful book out there by a gentleman named Dan Sullivan called Who Not How. You know that book?
Who Not How. No.
Who Not How. And what Dan Sullivan says is when you wake up in the morning and you go, how am I going to do this? How am I going to build my funnel? How am I going to work on my CRM? How am I going to do my social media? How am I? Wait a second. You're asking the wrong question. The question should be, who can I get to do this for me?
Yeah.
So that
isn't the same person who wrote Buy Back Your Time? Is he the same one?
I think so. I haven't read that book.
Okay. It sounds very familiar.
Right. Yeah. So it's the same idea. Buy back your time is because you're spending your time doing things you shouldn't be doing. Right. So you find out what your zone of genius is, what you're great at. And then find other people to do the things that they're great at. Now, there's a gentleman who many of us know. His name is Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to meet him a few times. And one time when I was in a group of people with him, he said, I want to be the dumbest person in my own business.
Yeah.
I want to surround myself with smarter people in their areas of expertise. So what I say is the people that know how work with and for the people that know why. That doesn't minimize those hows.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So my zone of genius is coaching and speaking. Right? So if I'm going to spend half of my day working on my email list and doing all those things, I'm wasting my time. I should find somebody which I have a partner who's wonderful on the technical side. And her name is Heather, spends her time building the things that I don't even know how to build and that I don't want to know how to build. So I spend my time doing what I'm great at, and she spends her time doing what she's great at. So for the people who suffer of shiny object syndrome like me and say, oh, I can do this, I can do that. Oh, don't be the jack of all trades. Be the master of one.
Yeah. Don't be jack of all trades, be the master of one. So many gems. And I'm going to go into the community connection segment. And when I come back, Martin, what I want to hear from you is a bit about your program and just wrap up and remind us of what the L.I.F.E code is. And just tell a little about your book in there so we can send persons to wherever the book is sold. All right, so let me go into the community connection segment for today. And this is a segment where I invite you, our community, to share your reviews, your questions, your feedback, etc., to engage with us, because I want to make sure that I'm not the only one talking to myself here or my guest. Yeah. So this week I'm sharing a podcast review, and it's from Tahoe Girl from the United States of America. I run a baseball card business that is still very new and I'm learning. This is a great show for young startups like myself looking for guidance in the business world. Thank you for those words of affirmation, Tahoe Girl. I appreciate your listening. Thank you. Thank you so very much. All right. That was our community connection segment. So let's get back to Martin, who has been dropping gems. So tell us about your program. Remind us of the L.I.F.E code. Tell us about the book, where we can get it, all of those stuff. Wrap it all up for us, Martin. Bring it home.
Okay. So Heneka, thank you so much. I love your energy. I'm really feeding off of your energy. So thank you so much for that. So like I said earlier, I've been in so many of these programs where I got in and they go, we're going to be done for you, done with you. But you know what I found out? Most of them were done to you programs, were done to me. And I'd gotten burned so many times. And most recently, I got into a program, we're going to make you a celebrity and all this and give us all your money and we'll make sure. It was all smoke and mirrors and I got nothing out of it. And I spent a lot of money. So I decided that over the last 10, 12 years, I've been successful and I have ways of knowing it, but it's not cookie cutter. What works for me is not going to work for you specifically, Heneka, but the parameters to start it with. So I decided that what happens is so many of these programs coach on information, which is important. What they should be doing is coaching also on results. So I put together a program that at first coaches on information, and then I coach on results. What does that mean? In the beginning, you get in and you pay me 12.5% of what it costs to be in my program. 12.5%. And my program, I say I'm going to get you to $1 million within 2 years or less, guaranteed. And the guarantee comes in because I'm only asking for 12.5% upfront. Then you don't pay me again until you get results.
Say what now?
You like that, huh?
I love that. I'm sure my audience does too.
Because I call it a risk reversal strategy. I've reversed the risk and put it on me to get you successful.
Wow. That's like a money back guarantee.
Basically, you don't pay me another. So the first one is information. You need the information. Right? That's the systems. And I believe that there's 3 steps in a good program. Number 1, you have to have the right system. The next step, which ties into what I've done for the last 12, 15 years, is mindset, emotional intelligence, right? You have to have the right mindset. As much as you believe in me, as much as you believe in my program, Heneka, if you don't believe in yourself, it doesn't matter how good my information is. So in my program, you get my coaching program of changing your mindset from lack to abundance. And on our calls, I do one-on-one coaching in a group setting. We start every call working on mindset. What's happening in your life? What's going on? How can we help you get through that so that you could focus the right energy on your business? And then the last thing we talked about, we touched on it. It's the who, not how. It's being scalable, understanding that you stay in your zone of genius, and we help you find the people around you to do the things you shouldn't be doing.
Wow.
Should I drop the mic?
Mic drop, indeed. Martin, all right. So the L.I.F.E code, that's just amazing stuff you just shared here. The L.I.F.E code. Remind us the acronym.
So L.I.F.E code stands for Live Incredibly Full Every Day. And it means 2 things. You should have a happy life and a meaningful life. So many people go through life just being happy. And happiness to me is self-love, self-care, even selfish.
Mm-hmm.
But happiness is only so far. You also should have a meaningful life. And a meaningful life means selfless. What are you doing for others? So if you have both in your life, now you're living incredibly full every day.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. You've excited all of us, Martin. Where can we find you? Where can we find you?
Heneka, I made it very simple. You can
Mhm.
find my book. You can find my cards. You can find how to come to my next workshop where I talk about everything I do in my program over 3 to 4 hours. I don't leave anything unturned. And it's $27, but that $27 goes to a charity. So I'm not even making any money on that. And at the end of it, if you take the recording and if you leave me a recommendation on LinkedIn, I'll send you the PowerPoint. So you can do it on your own if you want, but you get deeper with me, of course. All that you could go to connectwithmartin.com.
Yeah, and I have it right up on my screen. So I'm connecting further with you when I am done here.
Oh, fantastic. And that you see, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Free stuff, buying
Yes,
stuff.
it's amazing, Martin.
Just connectwithmartin.com.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yes, that's it. You've connected here, so go deeper, go deeper. I'm coming to wrap with you in a bit, but let's go into trending now. What's trending now? We're looking at current trending topics that are impacting entrepreneurs. So today, a recent survey reveals that 70% of entrepreneurs report feeling overwhelmed by stress and anxiety due to the demands of their business. As the pressure to perform grows, finding ways to manage mental well-being is becoming a top priority, and that's what's trending now. All right, Martin, what powerful insights that you have shared with us today. Now, the plan, right? We need to admit, we need to cleanse and then plan and then celebrate that system that you shared with us, right? As part of the system to live incredibly full every day. Also going through a cycle of A's, ask, act, and having that attitude, the right attitude, to go along with it, what it is that you're expecting. Also quoting Dan Sullivan's book, Who Not How. We should essentially, the people that know how, work for the people that know what and why, right? I'm thinking about Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just resonating. So everything is just connecting for me right now. And I'm so grateful to you, Martin, that you came and you shared with enthusiasm your story, your jaw-dropping story at the beginning of this conversation. And you moved right into sharing the nuggets, the gem. But one of the things, believe it or not, what stood out for me, and it works for people who are a bit reticent and a bit apprehensive about signing up to another program that may or may not benefit them, is your process and how you've decided to just take 12.5% of your rates based on the information that you provide to them, and then based on the results, then the following payments are made. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that fantastic? I'm sure you're doing well on this policy, this principle. So thank you for sharing that and giving also ideas to other coaches. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Heneka. It's been such a pleasure to be with you.
Awesome sauce. And to all our listeners, our peak performers, remember that the path to abundance begins with that first shift in your thinking. Keep pushing forward, stay motivated, and believe in the greatness that you are capable of. Show us some love now by giving us a rate and review, whether in Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcast. Yeah, it helps others find the show. Discoverability for podcasts is one of our greatest challenges. So it helps when you interact with the show. Don't just listen to it and just move on. Share the love, right? Share the love. This is the Entrepreneurial You. It has been the Entrepreneurial You. And of course, I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter. But we leave here with our affirmation, right? So I'm going to ask you to affirm with me. I'm capable of achieving my dreams and navigating challenges with grace. I trust my intuition and allow my creativity to flow. Every step I take brings me closer to my goal, and I'm deserving of all the good that comes my way. Until then, until next time, until we connect again, I am Heneka Watkis-Porter, and this has been the Entrepreneurial You podcast. I will keep thriving and let my light shine. Thanks to my sponsors, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and to the others too. Take care of yourself for always being a part of my journey.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.